Hi, I'm Teresa Duncan.
And I'm Kevin Henry.
Welcome to Chew on This.
We are excited to bring you our views of current topics in the dental industry and put a little different spin on them, giving you something to chew on.
If you need to jump off, be sure to check the show notes for links as well as how to get in touch with us.
And now, let's give you something to chew on.
And we are back with another edition of Chew on This. K-Dog.
Teresa Duncan, it's a beautiful day here in the state of Colorado. Hope it is where you are as well.
It is hot, ungodly hot in D.C. We are in the middle of summer, and there's not enough fans in the world right now. So. I don't want to feel tropical in my office. That's just not a goal of mine.
I don't miss the humidity. I'm just telling you, this is the greatest thing about this beautiful state is no humidity.
Do you have mosquitoes?
We do. We still have those. There is water, but if you go up high enough in the mountains, they go away. We're just not high enough here at 5,000.
They wear little mosquito vests, things like that.
That's right.
So,
they have little mosquito oxygen tanks that they take with them up to altitude. It's fantastic.
We have already started off. So I am woefully unprepared for today's episode. And so I'll just admit that. But Kevin, you're going to save the day because you have like an amazing story for us.
Right? I do. And I'm kind of excited about this one because I think it's going to generate a little chat, between me and you. And whenever I think of mosquitoes, I think of water. How about you?
Yes, of course. I think itchy water.
So what if, and I'm just going to throw out a hypothetical situation. Let's say there was too much water around where you were. Maybe a flood, shall we say.
Ooh. Uh-oh.
Would you think that there'd be a lot of mosquitoes around there if there was flooding?
Yeah, there'd be a lot of mosquitoes, and I would just be really happy that we weren't in Florida because I think their floods come with gators and anacondas or pythons or whatever. So, yeah.
Well, you know where doesn't have gators in their floods, but they do have mosquitoes, I can confirm.
Okay, tell me.
Our friends in the great land of 10,000 lakes in Minnesota. We love Minnesota. We love Minnesota.
Yes.
Love it.
Yes.
And we love a good dentist up there. We love Dr. Bill Struve. Let me tell you why we love Dr. Bill Struve. There was recently, and I'm sure you've read about it, you may have seen it on the news, there was a lot of flooding up in the Minnesota, South Dakota area. A lot of flooding that happened up there. And when your practice is in the middle of a flood, but doesn't get flooded itself, well, you're still open for business, technically.
How?
So Dr. Struve, being the guy that he is, and I'm just going to read this. At first, Struve put a wall of sandbags around his office and closed it for a couple of days. But after realizing the rising waters didn't damage his building or contaminate his self-contained water system, he then used a canoe to ferry in the patients who had dental conditions who just couldn't wait.
Stop.
So the man, and we're going to link to this because it's fantastic. The man had a canoe and he wanted to make sure that his dental patients still got there. So he would canoe out to meet them where the water wasn't deep and then canoe them back to the practice.
All right, I'm dying.
Please
tell me there's audio, not audio. Tell me there's video or pictures
of
this.
We'll have to check with our friends at Fox 9, but I believe there may be. I mean, there's definitely a still picture of him in his waders with the canoe. And so I'm going to tell you, kudos to this guy for figuring this out. But there's one part of the story here, because what's the first thing you think of if you put somebody in a canoe?
Want to make sure that they got a life vest and they don't tip over, right?
Exactly. So that's the quote from him. You had to make sure that you don't flip a patient in the water. So we had a couple of people holding on to either side of the canoe.
Things they don't teach you in dental school. How to keep your patient from flipping out of the canoe.
I think this is fantastic. So this brought up the question of, natural disasters. And of course, this is a thinking thing. But how far would you go to make sure your patients still had the care? And I mean, kudos to this guy for figuring out, what? I've got a canoe. We can make this work.
Like, did he just go into his backyard and he's like, man, I need to save production. Like, what do I do here? And he like looks at the plywood. He's like, no, that's not going to work. The beach here, no, that's not going to work.
That, right? I mean, the dental assistant had to get in there at some point. So,
oh, that's true. So, did he do this all by himself? So, in Colorado, when you have a snowstorm, people just go on with their lives.
Yeah.
Here, if you just say the word, the S word, everything shuts down. School shut down, everything, right? We had a pretty bad snowstorm, and my boss, he probably would do this canoe thing. And he was like, I will go get the patients. And so he went to go get the assistant,
Yeah.
and I was able to make it in. And he's done this before, even after I left. And he would say, call the patient, ask if it's okay if I come get them. And patients were like, yeah, let's do it. But I just remember thinking, I don't know. Like, if it's snowy outside, the last thing I want to do is get into somebody's car that I've never ridden with before. You know, he's a charming dude. So maybe people just like that.
He's a
I don't
charming
know.
individual. There's no question. I mean,
Yes, absolutely.
I can tell you that I have heard tales up in our mountain towns here in Colorado of the snowmobile making an
Mm,
appearance to get people
okay.
to and fro.
Well, first of all, when you said their office was untouched by the floods, automatically thought of this dental office on a hill, like overlooking, surveying the town. And he's like, said the dude standing outside going, why can't people make it? Right. So, but
Exactly.
that's not what happened. So,
No,
so he had to go get his team members, or he needs an
I'm
assistant. I
assuming
guess
that
the
it doesn't say that in the article, but I'm also assuming he's not doing if it's some kind of emergency dentistry, he's not doing all that by himself. I mean, there's just no way.
No, I would hope not. And from a legal standpoint, like my brain is, you don't want to get somebody by yourself in there. Gosh knows what could happen, allegations, or even like you get an unstable person, whatever. So I hope that he had somebody. So he probably paddled on down to get the assistant, and
Yep.
then admin team can stay at home. So he works on the patient and then paddles the patient on home, or perhaps he paid somebody to paddle them back and forth, like almost an Uber with oars.
An Uber with oars. I like that. That's a new kind of
don't
Uber
know.
right there. Yeah,
I
I don't
don't
know.
know.
But I mean, just think, if you're the dentist, you're already canoeing somebody in. And granted, this may have been, 50 feet. I don't know how far the canoe ride was, but still, you're canoeing them in and out. You're also doing the dentistry. It's a lot of workout for you during the day right there.
And also, there is a show that you will remember. And of course, our younger listeners will go, there they are again, the grumpy old people. There's a show called Dawson's Creek. Do you remember Dawson's
Oh, yeah,
Creek?
absolutely.
And this guy, the whole thing of 28-year-olds playing people in high school. And I never actually watched it, but I remember seeing anytime I saw it on TV, it was always this dude just paddling and picking up his friends on their way to school. Like he would canoe. Like
Good.
that's how they got to know each other. Like there, some towns you have the main drag where you pull into the Taco Bell lot at night and talk to everybody, right? Like you have
See?
that main
Yep.
drag, small town America. This is not the case there. They would canoe everywhere. So Dawson's Creek, I guess, normalized canoes for very many people.
We grew up with canoes. This was what we saw on TV. I'm telling you.
We're
So,
gonna have to link Dawson's Creek, and a lot of people will recognize the main actor from Dawson's Creek is the same guy from the Crying meme. So I'll have to get a picture of the Crying meme.
well done. There's a lot going
He's
on there.
yeah. So there is a lot going on there. So we could probably do a Crying meme combination of I got to go pick up my next patient. So. So I am very impressed, actually. I mean, all jokes aside, I think that's amazing. He wants to do what's best for his patient base, but
Oh,
wow,
it's very
wow.
smart. I mean, you talk about there's a problem here. How can I solve it? And getting after it. So good for him.
But imagine that you have an appointment and you're like, I better just stay home. And Dennis like knocks on your door and he's like,
Hey, you're
hey,
getting in the
right, we're here.
canoe. You're
Yeah.
getting in this canoe, and we're going. There you go.
Don't worry about the water in your basement. It's not going anywhere. Let's go. Like
You got plenty of time. You're fine. Yeah, it's interesting to me
very
because
interesting.
here's the other thing that I admit my mind went there, and yours probably did
Hmm.
too, if you'll admit it as well. There are probably some patients that aren't meant to be in a canoe, or
Oh
maybe
yeah.
some that yeah. So
Yeah.
there had to be some challenges here for Dr. Struve. So again, good for him.
What did you do when you got in a boat? You rocked
Oh,
it. That's what we did as kids. And then
absolutely.
parents would yell and all that kind of stuff. And then the other piece is you have people that are terrified of water. Like I'm thinking of him, my boss coming and picking up my mom who cannot swim and is terrified of being on a
Oh yeah.
boat. She would be on the floor of the canoe crying.
My tooth isn't
But
hurting that bad right now. I'm good. I'm good.
can
Toothache
you
or
just take
canoe
it out here?
while you're here.
Just take it out right here. So wow, that's a great story. I am super impressed. Anytime somebody says, oh, we got to close the office, inclement weather, shame on you,
Dr. Struve
right?
appears in a hologram saying, bah. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
come on, makes you feel
What
bad
a
about it.
wuss. right? Like they should just create a meme of him going, "What a wuss!" Like,
Exactly it. I can't come in today. I've
but
got a flat tire. What a wuss. There you go.
listen, where I am in Northern Virginia, there's Old Town Alexandria. And the lowest part of Old Town is this corner that is the most popular at night on Fridays and Saturday nights. But it's also the lowest part of Old Town. So Old
Yep.
Town floods quite often. And so restaurants always had the sandbags and back and forth. And you would walk through sandbagged water to get into the restaurant, and the restaurant would close off certain parts of the floor, but the rest of the floor would be open for business. Like flooding
Yeah.
doesn't bother us. Like if you could
Yes.
park up the hill and walk down and you got duck boots on, you're good, right?
Yeah.
So I guess people just get used to that. And then yeah, closed for flood is was not an abnormal thing to see in our area of the woods. So we are at the end of summer, coming up on the end of summer,
Yes.
right? So we're at the midpoint of the year, and we actually have a special announcement. We have something planned for our Chew on This listeners and other listeners too. We would really like to bring in more Chew on This listeners, but something that we did a couple years ago, Kevin, was to have a webinar, and we called it Chew on These Trends.
Yes.
And we had a really a good amount of people. I forget, a couple hundred people that signed up and listened to it. And we went over what was going on in the industry. So not quite salacious, but actually
Not,
educational.
we'll definitely put our fun spin on it, shall we say? But I love the
Mm-hmm.
fact, all kidding aside, one of the things I love about our relationship, other than you're just a good human being, is that you see
Oh.
things from a different lens than I do. And so
Mm-hmm.
whenever we're talking about what's going on in the industry, we definitely bring different perspectives to the table. And that's one of the things I love the most about doing those trends courses with you, is that right there.
For sure. So, and that is something that we do. Like, if we're both speaking at a meeting, we offer it to
Mhm.
the meeting planner. But we thought, you know what, let's just do a webinar again because we went through 1 or 2 years of not doing it. And every time that happens, we always go, why didn't we do it? And we don't have an answer. So, December 12th at 8 p.m. Eastern is going to be the webinar. And I will post the link in the show notes, and you can find it on my events page as well. And Kevin will post it. I don't know where Kevin's going to post it. You'll
There's going
post
to
it
be a
somewhere,
whole
right?
teaser about it for Dr. Bicuspid. So if you're subscribed to Dr. Bicuspid, you're going to see a lot about it over the next few months as well. Because, yeah, I really want this to be something that we're both giving our thoughts on where we're going in 2025, which is going to be a fascinating year.
Yeah, and so we'll talk about employment trends because we are always on top of that. That's something we're fascinated with. Kevin's really into generational differences and how
Oh, yeah,
things have changed, and we're getting even younger people in the workforce. So I know that's something that we talk about
for
often.
sure.
And then I definitely am going to go into some of the revenue cycle management stuff, insurance stuff, but that won't be too boring. I'll make it fun. And I think what we could do, Kevin, is pick one or two of our favorite stories from the year
We may announce
and
our
do
stories of the
that.
year. I like that, actually. What were our
Yeah, I
favorite
think we
ones?
should. And if you're a new listener, we tend to do between 2 and 3 stories an episode, and we can't help it. They're not the most educational stories, but they are
Hey,
highly relevant to our
looks
dental
nice.
industry. Looks maxing.
Jackson,
Yeah, the
yes.
the mewing.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And then there
No.
was TikTok trends, glitter dentures. Let me
Oh,
just
yeah.
think here. There's other things. We had a whole bunch of dentists doing not
Not great
dentisty
things.
things.
No, no. So,
Right.
so if you haven't heard any of those, you've definitely got to catch up on some of the things we've talked about. And maybe, maybe listeners, you've got a favorite story of the year that you want us to look back on as we get toward to
Oh,
December 12th.
that's great. Yeah, actually, we would love to hear what your favorite
Yeah.
stories are. That's great. So, December 12th, 8 p.m. Eastern, you can go home from a long day of work, kick off your shoes, and then giggle a little bit. And then when people say, "What are you laughing at?" you're like, "Ha, not in the cool kids club." So, you'll feel very superior, which is what we
Right.
want, right?
We're looking for that right there.
So that's what we're looking for you to feel primo
That's
and
right.
special, right? You're part of the club. So, all right, Kevin, since I came actually unprepared, I don't have a story other than,
It's all right. You
that's it,
plug you
actually.
plug the trends webinar, so you have done your job, young lady. So you know what? If I could come pick you
Hmm.
up in a canoe right now, I would. So thank you.
That's right. And I would say, actually, unless it's an air conditioned canoe, I ain't going anywhere. It's
Good.
hot. It is hot. Yeah. So you got to get one of those. Like the Pope Mobile has the glass on
Oh
his
yeah,
car.
the
I
bubble
need
canoe.
a, yes. Oh
The
my
bubble canoe.
gosh.
See? Would your mom
No
get in a bubble canoe?
mosquitoes. No, she'd be
You
terrified.
still wouldn't? Okay.
No, she wouldn't. But will the bubble canoe have like a little hole where I can do my fishing rod out of it?
You
Can you
know,
imagine fishing in air conditioning?
if you could get a
Oh my
bubble canoe
God.
with some kind of little pokey hole thing for your rod, I'm not sure how you cast.
Yes.
We got to work on this. We have to.
Oh, we'd have to, yeah, it'd have to be you roll it back and then cast and then sit back down because
Yeah.
I love fishing. I really do, but I hate to sweat. So
Yeah,
somebody's going to solve this problem.
Listeners, there's your challenge. Till next time.
All right, dear listeners, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you for the next one.
And that's a wrap for this episode of Chew on This. We hope you laughed and learned a little.
Check out the show notes for any links we mentioned, and don't forget to give us a rating on your podcast app. Feel free to drop us a comment on social media or by email if you have any suggestions for future topics.
We'll be back in about 2 weeks. See you then.